After Edu left, Aito has been the acting sporting director for the club of Arsenal, and they have not gone ahead, obviously, grant him a chance to see to it that he obviously signs a single player in the recently concluded winter transfer window. And that's one of the big blows of Arsenal that I've gone ahead, obviously, see them really crawl or really snail around in the title race against Liverpool. As we speak right now, looks like Liverpool is 13 points ahead of Arsenal in the title charge for the season of 2024-2025, and things are not really moving on the way they want them to be. So, in so doing, Arsenal have lined up a list of people that they're really interested in. And guess what? The latest to be added on the list is the former United sporting director known as Dan Ashworth. Welcome to the Rokani Media Football. How are you guys and where are you watching us from? This is the 1st of March 2025. I repeat it. 1st of March 2025, and hope you guys are really having fun wherever you are. This is the channel that brings you your latest news and information as far as everything is really concerned. And Rokani David is my name, and let's see close to 200 likes much of this video and continue to see that you subscribe such that we hit 30,000 subscribers into the mix, as lots of transfer stories have already gone ahead of it to gain momentum. Joshua Kimmich is there. I've seen Ferran Torres. I've gone ahead to see Omorodion, Alexandra Isak, very many others. But for all of that to happen, there is one thing that has to first happen at Arsenal. They need to first get in their sporting director into the mix. Remember, we are powered by St. Maria Goret SS Katende. You understand? And registration is in progress for S1s, S2s, S3s, and S5s. And you can register via their website, and their website is down into the description box below. Or you can call them onto +256 702 478 536, +256 702 564 109. That's how you really get them. That is St. Maria Goret SS Katende, best education for your child, So even if you're abroad, you can as well contact them on those numbers, and they'll let you know what they really have at their plate to serve your sibling, your child, your maybe you might be having a child that you really want to give a hand, and so on and so forth. So guys, we are also powered by Mono Gadgets. If at all you need affordable smartwatches, go ahead and obviously call them on +256 70 99 88 665. That is Mono Gadgets for you. The number is +256 70 99 88 665. If at all you need an affordable smart wrist watch. So who has gone ahead to obviously break this story? It's coming in through from a reputable man, tier 1 journalist who works for both the Athletic and New York Times, and he goes by the names of David Austin. He has said that Arsenal aim to appoint new sporting director in March. Jason Aito, Dan Ashworth, Andrea Bata, Roberto Olabe, Thiago Scuro, among names discussed, all spoken to. Process ongoing as Arsenal whittle down options to interview before final decision. So Arsenal are really in a very huge goal into what they think is right to do for the club. And first and foremost, they note it that for them to have a very good window, that is a summer transfer window, they need to recruit the sporting director on time. And that's why the shortlist has Jason Aito, and he's now the acting sporting director for the club of Arsenal. There is Dan Ashworth, there is Andrea Bata, there is Roberto Olabe, and Thiago Scuro, among names discussed, all spoken about in there. So let's obviously first talk about Dan Ashworth. Dan Ashworth is one of the most reputable sporting directors in England. His reputation is really undoubted. If you've been following him up, you'll note it that in 2012, the FA, or the Football Federation, recruited him to obviously restructure the DNA of the England national team. And it did lots of wonders for both the men and women team. And he started in 2012. He drew up a project, and that's when he saw to it that he brought in Gareth Southgate. And England, in the World Cup of 2018, England found themselves in a position of finishing in the semi-finals. But you remember that new breed of players that he came up with: Harry Maguire, John Stones, Kyle Walker, Kylian Trippier. There was Dyer, Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling, Marcus Rashford. So that was the new crop of players that he obviously brought to the England national team. And ever since then, by the way, England has never been the same, because in the recently concluded World Cup, they're knocked out at the quarterfinals. They played in 2 consecutive Euro finals in 2020. Was it 2021, where they were beaten by Italy in penalties, and recently in 2024, where I think they were beaten by Spain, in the final. That is England for you. So I tell you, he's a very reputable guy. Now, let's leave the England side, because he really did wonders. Even the women teams are really doing great at the unders. And don't forget that the under 17 of England that had the likes of Solanke went ahead to win the World Cup. And you've gone ahead to see that Waneri is also part of that project. He's the man that really drew up that project where they are right about now. Then, club football, it's where it comes interesting. He was at West Bromwich. Where he looked at the likes of Lukaku, but that was not really epic. But his talent in recruiting players as a sporting director was best expressed when he came in through at a team known as Brighton. And these are the players that he signed at Brighton: Moise Caicedo, Alexis McAllister, Leandro Trossard, Evan Ferguson. And by the way, let me tell you the amount of money he brought these players for. Moise Caicedo, £4 million. McAllister, he brought him for £7 million. Leandro Trossard, he bought him for £15 million. Evan Ferguson, he brought him in for free. Mitoma, £2.6 million. What a signing. The other one is Maki Kurela. If you know him very well, he brought him in for £15 million, and when they're selling him to Chelsea, they made a profit of close to £50 million. Tariq Lamptey, he brought him in for £5 million. Then Joel Veltman, he brought him for just £900,000. Then Adam Webster, he bought him in for £20 million. Adam Lallana was free. Danny Welbeck was free. And Jan Paul Van Heck, £1.8 million. Neil Maupay, £20 million. Those are some of the players he brought in through at the side of Brighton. You understand? And you really know those names, and they really keep sounding into your ears. If at all you know at that side of Brighton. So for his recruitment in the Premier League, top notch. Let's go to the side of Newcastle and see who he brought in at Newcastle. Alexandra Isak, £63 million. Now his value is almost times 2, because Newcastle is calling in for £130 million. The other one at Newcastle was Nick Pope, £10 million, one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. Anthony Gordon from Everton, he brought him in for £45 million. Then he brought in Steve Bootman for £31 million, to Newcastle. Then he also brought in a player known as Sandro Tonali, right? He brought in Sandro Tonali, right? In there for you. Then he brought in Timo Livramento for £32 million. Then Huffy Barnes for £38 million. That is the guy. Matt Target, £15 million. Then I'm asking myself, who really signed Bruno Guimaraes? Let me check here. When did Bruno Guimaraes join the side of Newcastle? That is it. I really want to know when he joined the side of Newcastle, because the time he joined Newcastle is really very important, because I think he joined in January. Was it January 2022? Yeah, January 2022. And when did Dan Ashworth come in through at when did Dan Ashworth become Oh yeah. Dan Ashworth was not responsible for the coming in because he joined in February after this one came in January. But that cannot rule out his efforts of really being part of the coming in of this player, because they brought in for some good amount of money, meaning that however much he came in through in February, but we all have to understand that this guy was really involved. So those are the signings made for the side of Newcastle and Brighton, and most of the notables have gone ahead obviously increase their price. Look at Mitoma, he came in for 1.8 million pounds. Right now they even turned down close to 90 million euros from Al Nassr. Look at Moise Caicedo, he came in for just 4 million pounds and they sold him for 116 million pounds to the side of Chelsea. Huge profit. McAllister, they sold him for 35 million pounds. That is Brighton. Cucurella, they sold him for 65 million pounds, almost a profit of 50 million pounds. They're really having very many players that he brought in that are really doing great. Look at Newcastle. Bruno Guimaraes, his price has really gone ahead, obviously, go north. Alexandra Isak the same. Anthony Gordon the same. You can look at Sandro Tinali the same. Bootman. All the players that I was going to bring in at Newcastle have been a success. Even at Manchester United, he signed Mazarawi, Matthias De Ligt, Joshua Zirkzee. He brought in Lenny Yoro and who is the fifth player? Manuel Ugarte. And do you really downplay those players? So for me, I think I'm going to be discussing other sporting directors in a minute, but I think he's the guy that Arsenal should give a chance. I tell you, because he knows the Premier League and he knows which type of players are needed for Arsenal to obviously win the trophy. Because if he really brought in players at Newcastle that are really looking like that, Alexandra Isak and so on and so forth, why not obviously give him a job? And by the way, if Arsenal is facing stiff competition from teams like Barcelona, Liverpool, that are really interested in Alexandra Isak, you understand, why don't you really give this guy a job who bought him from Real Sociedad and he came in throughout Newcastle to help you convince him to come and really play the club of Arsenal? I think he can really convince the player and he can really negotiate this deal very well because he knows Newcastle to the core. So that is Dan Ashworth for you. And he doesn't have a job. That is the most important bit of it all. All these others that we're obviously going to be discussing, they do have their jobs. That is the huge difference. That all these others that we're going to be discussing in a nick of an eye, they really have jobs. And Arsenal will need to pay money to see to it that they obviously compensate. But these others, it's only one, known as Dan Ashworth, who doesn't have what we call a job, and that means Arsenal will obviously get him in very, very, very easily. Now, there is one of those that Arsenal is looking at is Thiago Scuro. He's at Monaco. That's where he is, and he's really doing his business there. Then the other one is Andrea Bata. Andrea Bata is the sporting director for Atletico Madrid. When I was really looking through his profile of players that he has gone ahead to obviously bring in at the side of Atletico Madrid, it's really very, very huge. You understand? You look at people, we've gone ahead to look at players like David Villa, He brought in David Villa from Barcelona. Then he brought in Jan Oblak, Then there is another guy called Antonio Griezmann. He's one of those that this guy went ahead obviously bring in at the side of Atletico Madrid, meaning that he really has that reputation. He's a reputable guy when it comes obviously signing these players in here. Then who else? Jan Carrasco, you know him. He's one of those players that he brought in through and he's really doing great. Let me check out for others. Let me check out for his signings in here, such that I really give you the exact facts about the signings he brought in through at the club of Atletico Madrid, that everyone is like, he should be the guy to obviously bring in at the club of Arsenal. Which other? Jan Carrasco in there. Then he brought in Diego Jota, Diego Jota in there. Then they say Jota was relatively unknown, 19-year-old, when he moved to Atletico from Pacos de Ferreira in for 7 million euros. And Atletico also managed to double their money on the forward by selling him to Wolves for 14 million euros. So he brought in Diego Jota that you're seeing now in the Premier League. He brought him in and they sold him for 14 million euros to Wolverhampton Wanderers before he crossed to Liverpool. So you now see who the player is. He also brought in Rodri. Rodri came through from the academy of Atletico Madrid when released in 2013 due to reported lack of physical strength and moved to Villarreal. So he brought in Rodri. Kylian Trippier from Spurs. Marcos Llorente. He brought in Luis Suarez from Barcelona. So I think he's really reputable when it comes to doing his job. So I think he also has a very good reputation. But my worry is Arsenal need to bring in a person who is obviously going to be starting work immediately. Not a person who is going to be coming in the summer to start to study the situation of the club. I think Dan Ashworth is the best out of all these. I don't know what your thoughts are about this, but I think Danny Ashworth is the best for all of these. Now, the other one is at Real Sociedad. That is Roberto Olabe. And let's look through the signings he has gone ahead to make. As Arsenal is really looking at him to see to it that he obviously comes in through to do the job of the sporting director. Now, Roberto Olebe, let's see. They say he brought in Martin Odegaard and Alexandra Isak. He brought in Martin Odegaard and Alexandra Isak. This is the guy. So he's really very reputable and Arteta needs him. He bought in Isak for 10 million euros. He also signed Odegaard on loan from Real Madrid. So those are some of the players he really brought in, meaning that his reputation is also good, but can he really match the levels in the Premier League? That is the most important bit of it all, because he wants to really leave the club in the summer, but Arsenal need a sporting director before they head into the summer transfer window. And I don't want Arsenal to fall a victim or to fall in a trap that United fell in, because United wanted Dan Ashworth and they got him after even the Euros were done. You understand? So he never studied the pure situation of the club. So all I think is the best candidate is Dan Ashworth. Get him in at Arsenal in March. He will study the situation because he has no job, and he will obviously know which players to bring in, discuss with Mikel Arteta, and start those negotiations early enough, such that at the beginning of the summer transfer window, Arsenal gets in the players they believe they really deserve to get and have into their team. So that's exactly we are having in here onto the Rokani Media Football. Your thoughts on Arsenal in for Dan Ashworth are welcome in the comment section below. Now, do you think Arsenal needs Andrea Beto, Roberto Olebe, all these other Thiago Scuro from Monaco? Who do you think is the best sporting director that Arsenal should obviously hire to see to it that they obviously have a dream summer transfer window? Should they keep Aito, who is now the acting sporting director, whom they couldn't trust to bring in a player in the January transfer window? All that and more into the comment section below. Rokani David, it remains my name, and continue to subscribe. 1st of March it is. We've gone ahead to kickstart the 3rd month of the year, and we hope the best really goes ahead. For the Muslims, Juma Karim.